My sister Sabotaged spat on me and kissed my husband in our wedding. My parents blamed me. So I had her arrested, fired, and erased from my life. I am Amelia, a 28-year-old female, and I was about to marry my amazing fiancé, Marcus, a 30-year-old male. Clara, my 25-year-old sister, has always been the shining star in our family. Everything I accomplished, she had to surpass. Everything I desired, she had to possess. But this time, she took it too far. Allow me to paint you a picture of Clara. She's lovely, I'll give her that. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the type of person who never had to work for attention since it was always readily available. Our parents revered the land she walked upon. When Chloe received a C in college, people praised her efforts. When I graduated summa cum laude, many asked why I wasn't more well-rounded like Chloe. When Chloe was arrested for drunk driving at age 22, they blamed the system and hired the best counsel money could buy. When I was promoted to senior manager at my marketing agency, they asked whether I was confident I could handle the stress, and suggested I focus on finding a husband instead. You get the picture. Marcus and I have been together 4 years. He proposed on a beach in Hawaii during our spring vacation last year, and it was wonderful. He's nice, humorous, and accomplished, but most importantly, he sees me for who I am. Not as Chloe's older sister, not as the responsible one, just me. When we announced our engagement, my family's first query was not, "Congratulations," but, "Does Clara approve of him?" I should have noticed the red signals. The wedding planning process was a nightmare. Chloe involved herself in every choice. She obviously wanted to be maid of honor, despite the fact that Sophie, my best friend since high school, had been my closest confidant. She requested clearance on the color scheme because, what if it clashes with my complexion? She even suggested we alter the location because the original one was not elegant enough for our family's standards. But the real kicker came 2 months before the wedding, when Clara began making remarks about Marcus. "He's so funny, Amelia. You're lucky to have him. Marcus really gets my sense of humor. We have so much in common." She began popping up unannounced at our place, always when Marcus was present. She'd wear low-cut tops and short skirts, laugh too loudly at his jokes, and make reasons to touch his arm or shoulder. Marcus told me about it right away. "Your sister's being really weird," he commented one evening after Chloe had spent 3 hours at our house, ostensibly assisting with wedding invites but actually monopolizing his time. "She keeps making these comments about how we'd make a good couple, and today she asked me what I'd do if I'd met her first." I confronted Clara about it. "Big mistake, Amelia, you're being paranoid," she remarked, with that innocent smile that had always kept her out of trouble. "I'm just trying to bond with my future brother-in-law. Isn't that what families do?" When I brought it up with our parents, they dismissed me completely. "Clara's just excited about the wedding," she remarked. "You're being jealous and possessive. It's not a good look on a bride." Dad was worse. "Your sister is young and social, stop reading into everything. Marcus chose you, didn't he?" The rehearsal dinner was held the night before the wedding at a lovely downtown restaurant. Clara delivered a maid of honor speech that was supposed to be about me, but became entirely about her. She discussed her own marital hopes and love concepts before concluding, "I just hope Marcus knows how lucky he is to be joining our family. No, Amelia, our family." Marcus held my hand under the table and said, "Tomorrow we'll be married, and this will all be behind us." If only we'd known. The wedding day began well. It was October 15th, and the Willowbrook Country Club had the finest autumn weather. I'd been dreaming of this day since I was a child, and everything was going as planned. My grandmother's exquisite vintage-inspired lace gown served as my attire. The flowers were perfect, white roses and eucalyptus. The space was decorated just how I had imagined. Clara was acting unusual all morning, which I attributed to anxiety. She continued giggling and saying bizarre things like, "This is going to be such an interesting day, and some people are going to be so surprised." I was too preoccupied with my own enjoyment to pay any attention. The ceremony was amazing. Marcus looked stunning in his navy suit, and as I walked down the aisle, the love in his eyes made me feel like the only woman in the world. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, except for Clara, who appeared to be scheming something. After the ceremony, we were snapping photos with the wedding party when it happened. I was posing with my new spouse, both of us beaming with joy, when Clara approached us. At first I assumed she wanted to congratulate us or take a photo. Instead, she stared me dead in the eye and spat right in my face. The photographer's camera caught my shock, saliva trickling down my cheek, my immaculate makeup damaged. But Chloe wasn't finished. Before I could grasp what had happened, she pounced at Marcus, grabbing his face and slamming her lips against his in an intense, possessive kiss. She clutched on firmly. Marcus was surprised for a time and couldn't react. When he finally pushed her away, she smirked. "Congratulations, brother-in-law," she murmured softly, as if nothing had occurred. The entire bridal party froze in disbelief. Sophie gave me a tissue and asked, "What the hell just happened?" Marcus looked terrified, wiping his lips and taking a protective step in front of me. "Clara, what is wrong with you?" I managed to cry, my voice quivering with wrath and embarrassment. My parents rushed over, but not to console me or discuss Chloe's behavior. No, they went straight into damage control mode for their lovely daughter. "She's drunk," Mom exclaimed, grasping Chloe's arm. "Chloe's had too much champagne," Dad said, nodding excitedly. "Clara, it was a mistake, right? You didn't mean anything by it?" They were both looking at Clara with concern and care, completely ignoring the fact that I was standing there with spit on my wedding dress and my sister's lipstick in my husband's mouth. "I tried to explain," I responded, my voice rising. "She just spat on me and kissed my husband, on my wedding day." Mom turned on me with a ferocity I'd never seen before. "How dare you say anything to Clara?" she exclaimed. "She made a basic error." I looked at her in bewilderment. "Is this a mistake?" She purposely spat in my face. Dad stepped forward, his face red with rage, but not at Clara, at me. "Stop seeking attention, Amelia. We're already at your wedding. Leave your sister alone." My brother Derek, 26, decided to add his own brilliant observation. "Some brides just can't handle a little fun." Uncle Trevor, Dad's brother, nodded wisely. "Some people just ruin their own special days." And Aunt Celeste, Mom's sister, put the final nail in the coffin. "Finally, someone's being honest about her drama." Chloe simply stood there, grinning gleefully at my humiliation. She wasn't intoxicated. Her eyes were clear, and her movements were organized. She knew precisely what she was doing, and she was loving every moment of my agony. The wedding guests were beginning to whisper and point. Some people used their phones to take images and videos. My special day was transformed into a circus, with my own family serving as the ringleader. But there's one thing about me that my family never understood. I never break. I bend, adapt, and plan. And something clicked into place as I looked at their expressions, seeing their blatant disregard for my sentiments and their shielding of Chloe's reprehensible behavior. I remained calm. I wiped the spit off my face with all the dignity I could summon. I fixed my dress. I looked each of them in the eye and smiled. "You're absolutely right," I answered gently. "Clara is drunk, and people make mistakes when they are drunk, so I forgive her." My family appeared relieved. Chloe seemed perplexed, but remained smug. Marcus grabbed my hand, unsure of my plans but entirely trusting me. "In fact," I went on, "I think we should make sure Chloe gets the help she needs. Sophie, could you please call the police and report a drunk and disorderly person at our wedding? I'm concerned for Chloe's safety." Sophie, bless her heart, understood immediately and took out her phone. "No, wait," Mom replied hurriedly. "That's not necessary, she's fine." "Oh, but you just said she's drunk," I responded pleasantly. "And drunk people who assault others and make unwanted sexual advances need help, don't they? I mean, she did just spit on the bride and forcibly kiss the groom. That's assault and sexual harassment. If she's drunk, then she clearly needs medical attention, and possibly detox." Dad stepped forward. "Amelia, don't be ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" I inquired, my voice remaining calm but becoming louder so our guests could hear. "My sister just assaulted me and sexually harassed my husband at my wedding. And you're calling me ridiculous for wanting to help her with her obvious drinking problem." Chloe's smirk was fading quickly. "I'm not drunk," she replied immediately. "Oh?" I asked, turning to her with furrowed brows. "So you deliberately spat on me and kissed my husband without being impaired? Well, that's even worse, isn't it?" The crowd was growing now, and I could see several of Marcus's family members looking horrified by the situation. His mother, Paula, was filming everything with her phone. "Clara, honey, just say you're sorry and that you were confused," Mom said urgently. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. "Actually, you know what? I think we need to address this properly. Marcus, darling, do you want to press charges for sexual assault?" Marcus, who had been silently enraged the entire time, stepped forwards. "Yes," he said forcefully. "Yes, I do. I did not consent to that kiss, and I want it on record." "Amelia," Dad hissed, "stop this nonsense." "Nonsense?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Let me tell you what's nonsense, Dad. Nonsense is spending $30,000 on a wedding only to have my sister assault me and my husband while my family defends her. Nonsense is being told I'm attention-seeking on my own wedding day. Nonsense is being told to leave my sister alone after she just publicly humiliated me. I turned to face the assembled guests, who were watching things develop like the world's most awkward reality show. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. As you can see, my family believes that spitting on the bride and kissing the groom without consent is just fun, and that I'm being dramatic for objecting to it. I want to thank you all for being here on what should have been the happiest day of my life. The crowd's noise grew louder. People were plainly uncomfortable and began to side with me. Several of Marcus's relatives were shaking their heads in disgust at my family's actions. Sophie had called the police, and I could see 2 cops approaching the area. Chloe spotted them as well and began to fear. "Amelia, please," she pleaded, losing her assertive tone. "I was just joking around." "Joking?" I inquired. "So, you're not drunk. You're just someone who thinks assault is funny." Cop Morales, the lead cop, approached us and inquired as to the nature of the matter. "My sister assaulted me by spitting on me during my wedding ceremony, and then she sexually assaulted my husband by kissing him without consent," I quietly whispered. "My family is claiming she's drunk, and that it was a mistake, but she just admitted she was joking around, which means she was sober, and did it deliberately." Officer Morales examined my soiled garment before turning to Marcus, who nodded grimly. "I did not consent to that kiss, and I want to press charges," Marcus stated unequivocally. "This is ridiculous," Mom exclaimed. "Officers, this is just a family misunderstanding." "Ma'am," Officer Morales answered respectfully. "Assault is assault, whether it's family or not, and if alcohol is involved, that doesn't excuse the behavior, it makes it worse." They questioned multiple witnesses, including the photographer, who showed them photos of the entire affair. The proof was pretty damning. But I wasn't finished yet. Definitely not. While the authorities were dealing with Chloe, who was now crying and claiming everything was a misunderstanding, I approached the DJ booth and requested the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," I continued, my voice clear over the sound system, "I want to thank you all for being here today. However, I need to address what just happened." The entire reception went silent. Even the catering workers paused to listen. "My sister Chloe just spat on me and kissed my husband without his consent. When I objected to this treatment, my parents defended her actions and told me I was being dramatic and attention-seeking. They said I was ruining my own special day by objecting to being assaulted." I could see my parents' faces become red with shame and anger, but I persisted. "I want everyone here to understand something. I have spent my entire life being told that Chloe's feelings, Chloe's needs, and Chloe's behavior are more important than mine. I have been told to be understanding, to be forgiving, to be the bigger person. Well, today, on my wedding day, I'm done." The crowd had gone utterly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "Clara, Mom, Dad, Derek, Uncle Trevor, Aunt Celeste, you are no longer welcome at my wedding. Security will escort you out. Furthermore, you are no longer welcome in my life." Security guards, whom I had quietly requested Sophie to summon, appeared at the borders of the gathering. "Amelia, you can't be serious," Mom cried, her voice breaking. "I'm dead serious," I responded. "I've spent 28 years watching you prioritize Chloe over everything else, including basic human decency. Today was the last straw." Officer Morales was now handcuffing Chloe. She was crying and imploring. All traces of her former smugness were vanished. "This isn't over," she screamed as she was dragged away. "You'll regret this." "No," I responded, staring her in the eyes. "I really won't." Dad attempted to approach me, but Marcus stood between us. "You heard my wife," he replied forcefully. "You need to leave." "This is insane," Dad exclaimed. "Over a little mistake." "Mistake?" I chuckled bitterly. "Dad, your daughter spat on me and sexually assaulted my husband at my wedding. The only mistake here is that I ever expected you to act like actual parents instead of Chloe's personal PR team." Security pulled them all out, and I could hear Mom crying and Dad screaming about how I was ruining the family as they were dragged away. Derek yelled at me for overreacting, and Uncle Trevor called me vindictive. Aunt Celeste was loudly stating that I had always been envious of Chloe. Once they were gone, something spectacular happened. The wedding was just amazing. Our remaining guests, Marcus's relatives and actual friends, rallied around us and showed us amazing support. His mother, Paula, gave me her lipstick to do my makeup. His father, Raymond, gave a toast about how delighted he was to welcome me into a family that valued me. Sophie arranged for the photographer to retake our wedding party images without my toxic family members. The greatest part, 3 of my cousins, who had been watching this spectacle unfold with rising disgust, approached me during the reception. "Amelia," my cousin Leah said, "we've been wanting to say this for years. Your parents' treatment of you compared to Chloe is absolutely disgusting. We're proud of you for finally standing up for yourself." Miles, my cousin, continued, "We've all talked about it behind closed doors. Chloe is a spoiled brat, and your parents enable her constantly. What she did today was unforgivable." Even my grandma, my father's mother, who is 89 and had been silently observing everything, approached me during the father-daughter dance that Marcus's father performed with me. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart," she said quietly in my ear. "I've been watching this family dynamic for decades, and it needed to stop. You did the right thing." However, the real vengeance had only just begun. You see, while Chloe was detained and my parents were being led away, I wanted Sophie to do something extremely particular. I gave her a list of phone numbers and instructed her to make several calls. Trent, Chloe's 2-year boyfriend, had to leave town for work and was unable to attend the wedding. Sophie called to inform him that his girlfriend had just been arrested for assault and sexual harassment during my wedding. Trent, who had clearly had his own suspicions about Chloe's behavior, promptly broke up with her over the phone and informed Sophie that he would be taking up his belongings from her apartment the next day. Sophie also contacted Chloe's employment. Chloe worked in a high-end boutique that took pleasure in its reputation and class. They were disappointed to learn that one of their staff had been arrested for assault at a family wedding. Sophie was sure to add that there was photographic and video proof, which may show up on social media. Sophie called the local newspaper Society reporter, who was already planned to cover our wedding because Marcus's family is well known in the neighborhood. Jenna Sharp, a reporter, was highly interested in the tale of a maid of honor who was arrested for assaulting the bride. The next morning, while Marcus and I were enjoying our first day as a married couple in our hotel suite, my phone began ringing nonstop. Clara made the first call from jail. "Amelia, you have to help me," she pleaded. "They're saying I might be charged with assault and sexual harassment. I could go to jail. I could lose my job. Trent broke up with me. Please, you have to drop the charges." "Clara," I said, "you made your choice when you decided to assault me and my husband at my wedding. Now you get to live with the consequences." "But I'm your sister," she cried. "Sisters don't spit on each other's faces," I told her. "Sisters don't sexually assault each other's husbands. You stopped being my sister the moment you chose to humiliate me on the most important day of my life." I answered the phone. The second call came from Mom. "Amelia, how could you do this to your own family?" She was weeping. "Clara is in jail. Do you know how embarrassing this is?" "Do I know how embarrassing this is?" I asked incredulously. "Mom, your daughter spat on me at my wedding, on camera, in front of 200 people, and you're worried about embarrassment?" "She made a mistake. People make mistakes." "No, Mom, mistakes are forgetting to RSVP to a party or wearing the wrong color shoes. Assault is a choice. And your choice to defend her instead of me tells me everything I need to know about what I mean to this family." I responded by hanging up. Dad called next, and he was furious. "Amelia, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this vindictive behavior needs to stop. Your sister needs help, not jail time." "You're right, Dad. She does need help. Professional help. And maybe some time to think about her actions will provide that." "This is going too far. Dad, let me ask you something. If Chloe had spat on and sexually assaulted a stranger at their wedding, would you be defending her behavior?" There is silence. "The only difference is that I'm your daughter too, but apparently that means less than Chloe's comfort. I'm done enabling this family's dysfunction." I called him back and hung up. But the calls kept coming. Derek called to inform me that I was wrecking Chloe's life for nothing. Uncle Trevor called to report that I was pulling the family apart. Aunt Celeste called to tell me I was selfish and hateful. I blocked all of their numbers. The big shock came 3 days later, when Jenna Sharp's story appeared in the Willowbrook Gazette. The title read, "Local Wedding Turns Ugly When Maid of Honor Assaults Bride and Groom." The newspaper contained images of the incident, which clearly showed Chloe spitting on me and kissing Marcus. It cited numerous anonymous wedding attendees who described the family's reaction and my parents' defense of Chloe's actions. The article described a troubled family dynamic and a bride who eventually stood up for herself. Within hours, many regional news sites took up the story and it was trending on local social media. Chloe's employer dismissed her that afternoon. Her landlord, who had watched the news, declined to renew her lease. Several of her acquaintances have publicly distanced themselves from her on social media. However, the actual ramifications had only barely begun. Chloe was charged with 2 charges of assault and 1 count of sexual harassment. Her court hearing was scheduled for December 15th, exactly 2 months after my wedding. She had hired a lawyer, but the photo and video evidence made her case seem hopeless. My parents attempted to pressure me to dismiss the accusations, including showing up at my office. I had them hauled out by security and sought a restraining order. The restraining order hearing was especially satisfying. After analyzing the evidence and hearing testimony from many witnesses, the judge awarded a 1-year restraining order against both Chloe and my parents for harassment. "Mrs. Prescott," Watson began to me, "I want you to know that the court finds your family's behavior completely inappropriate. No one should have to endure assault and then be told they're overreacting for objecting to it. Marcus and I traveled on our honeymoon to Italy, and it was simply wonderful. There was no family drama, no Clara attempting to insert herself into every moment, just us peacefully celebrating our marriage. When we returned, we discovered that Chloe had been posting more disturbing things about me on social media. Concerned pals submitted screenshots to me. She claimed that I was envious, had set her up, and that she was the true victim in all of this. So I did what any sensible person would do. I collated all of her posts, added them to the evidence file, and forwarded them to her lawyer as proof that she was clearly not sorry and was still openly harassing me. Her lawyer was not happy. Chloe's trial was a huge disaster. The prosecution, Amelia Cole, was quite thorough. She offered photo and video evidence, statements from many witnesses, and evidence of Chloe's ongoing harassment on social media. Chloe's case was essentially, it was just a joke, and she's always been jealous of me. Her lawyer attempted to portray me as vengeful, and Chloe as a young woman who made a mistake while drinking. But then something lovely occurred. Derek King, the photographer, had documented more than just the assault. He had been capturing candid photographs throughout the day and had observed Chloe's conduct prior to the event. The photographs showed her clearly sober, grinning, and preparing something. One photo even shows her conversing with a guest, appearing to suggest, "Watch this," while pointing at me. Marcus's testimony was really strong. He recalled Chloe's months of inappropriate behavior leading up to the wedding, her attempts to seduce him, and how he felt violated when she pushed herself on him. "Your Honor," he replied, "this wasn't a drunken mistake. This was a calculated attack on my wife and on our marriage by someone who has spent years trying to undermine Amelia's happiness." My testimony focused on the pattern of family dysfunction and how this incident was the culmination of decades of being reminded that my feelings were less important than Chloe's. "I'm not here for vengeance," I informed the judge. "I'm here because actions have consequences, and my family taught me that Chloe's actions never did. Someone needed to teach her that lesson." Chloe was found guilty of all charges. Despite her claim that she was not drunk, she was sentenced to 6 months in jail, suspended, 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory anger management counseling, and alcohol counseling. She was also ordered to pay restitution for the expense of replacing my outfit and the photographer's time spent retaking our images. The best thing, however, is that the judge added a specific condition to her probation: no communication with me or Marcus, and no social media posts mentioning us. Any transgression would result in the entire 6-month sentence being activated. The aftermath was everything I had hoped for, and more. Chloe's life had completely fallen apart. She couldn't get another work in retail since the story followed her around. She had to move back in with our parents, which was ironic given that they were dealing with the consequences of their enabling for the first time. Trent had not only broken up with her, but he had also told their entire buddy circle about it. Chloe found herself absolutely isolated socially. Her Instagram followers decreased from 3,000 to around 200, largely family members who felt forced to stay in touch. My parents' reputation within their social circle was ruined. Country club friends were asking embarrassing questions. Dad lost a potential business relationship because the prospective partner's wife had attended the wedding and observed everything. Mom was requested to step down from her position on the charity board, something she had been quite proud of. Derek, Uncle Trevor, and Aunt Celeste all attempted to reconcile months later, but I remained steadfast. I emailed them all the identical message. "You made your choice when you defended assault and blamed the victim. I'm making mine by choosing not to have people in my life who think that's acceptable." But here's the real kicker, the bit that makes me happy every time I think about it. 6 months after the wedding, Chloe broke her probation by making a false Instagram account and publishing a lengthy diatribe about me. She called me insane and claimed that I had ruined her life for nothing, and that I was a bitter, jealous sister who couldn't stand the fact that she was prettier than her. Someone screenshotted it and gave it to me. I forwarded it to the prosecutor's office. Chloe served 3 months in actual jail. When she came out, she was a different person. The arrogance had vanished, replaced by a downtrodden expression that I almost felt sorry for. Almost. She attempted to contact me once more, sending a letter through my grandmother. Amelia, the message read. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I was jealous and stupid. And I made terrible choices. I've lost everything, and I know it's my fault. I'm not asking for forgiveness, because I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I finally understand how much pain I caused you. Not just that day, but our whole lives. I hope you're happy. I read the letter once before throwing it away. Marcus and I have been married for 8 months, and our life is amazing. We purchased a nice house across town, away from my parents' area. We've gained new pals who truly respect and support us. We plan to start a family next year. My grandmother, who was appalled by the entire affair, amended her will to leave her house to me rather than dividing it between Chloe and me as planned. Chloe definitely does not understand the importance of family, but I do. 3 of my relatives have entirely stopped communicating with my parents and Chloe. They've become like siblings to me, the family I always wanted but never had. Marcus's family has absolutely embraced me. His mother tells people she has the daughter she has always wanted, and his father quips that he is relieved he no longer has to cope with my eccentric in-laws. Last month, I was promoted at work to regional manager. When I called to tell someone the wonderful news, I discovered I had called Marcus's mother, rather than my own. That's when I realized how much better my life was without my poisonous family. I heard through the grapevine that Chloe eventually got a work at a grocery shop 2 towns away. She lives in a studio apartment and, according to my cousin Leah, has acquired a lot of weight. She rarely leaves her apartment, except for work. My parents are supposedly visiting a marriage counselor because the stress of the situation has produced huge problems for them. Dad accuses Mom of raising Chloe incorrectly, while Mom accuses Dad of failing to support the family when it was most needed. They are both correct in certain ways. The funny part, around 4 months after the wedding, Mom attempted to send me a Christmas card as if nothing had occurred. Inside was what she'd written. We miss you. Clara is doing much better now. Maybe it's time to put this behind us. Love, Mom and Dad. I returned the package with the following comment. You missed my point entirely. The problem was never Chloe's behavior alone. The problem was your response to it. You taught me that my feelings don't matter, and that I should accept mistreatment for the sake of family peace. I finally learned that lesson. Just not the way you intended. I never heard back, but the consequences of that day continued to spread in ways I hadn't expected. Word of what happened spread across our area, and people began to come forward with their own stories about Chloe's behavior over time. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she had targeted. Sophie told me that 3 other women from high school had contacted her after viewing the television coverage. One student, Anna, informed Sophie that Chloe had purposefully damaged her senior year relationship with her boyfriend by circulating false information about Anna's adultery. Another girl, Renee, said Chloe stole her scholarship essay and presented it as her own, costing Renee a full ride to college. Monica, a third person, said that Chloe had keyed her car after Monica was voted as prom queen over her. The pattern was evident, and it had been ongoing for decades. Chloe was a predator who preyed on anyone she perceived as competition or who possessed what she desired. The difference this time was that she targeted someone who actually fought back. Caleb, Marcus's best man, also said something that made my blood boil. Chloe apparently showed up uninvited to the bachelor party 2 weeks before the wedding. She confronted Marcus in the bathroom, telling him that I was not the proper woman for him and that she could make him much happier. Marcus had told her to leave, Caleb answered, and had mentioned it to me, but hadn't wanted to upset you before the wedding. I should have told you, Marcus replied when Caleb eventually disclosed the truth. But I thought if I just ignored her, she'd get the hint. It's not your fault, I told him. Clara is a master manipulator. She spent years learning how to push boundaries and get away with it because everyone always makes excuses for her. This revelation gave me even greater confidence that I had made the right decision. Clara had not assaulted us on a whim. She had planned to undermine my marriage for weeks, if not months. Some people have asked me if I regret how I handled things, if I believe I went too far, and if I miss my family. The response is no, no, and occasionally. I do not regret standing up for myself. I don't regret refusing to accept that attack is simply enjoyable. I don't regret prioritizing my dignity over my family's comfort. Do I ever miss the idea of having a loving and supportive family? Of course. But I can't miss something I've never had. What I had was a bunch of people who regularly opted to put one person's comfort ahead of everyone else's fundamental human rights. Clara taught me a crucial lesson that day, but not the one she meant. She taught me that certain people will push the boundaries until someone says no. She taught me that enablers are just as harmful as the people they support. She also taught me that if you stop picking up trash, it will occasionally take care of itself. Marcus and I are thriving. We are arranging a vow renewal for our first anniversary, and we will only invite people who truly love and respect us. My guest list is shorter now, but it is much better. As for Clara, I last heard she was still working at that grocery shop, living alone, and dealing with the consequences of her decisions. My parents supposedly visit her every Sunday, and according to my cousin Leah, these trips usually finish with Clara wailing about how terrible her life is, and my parents agreeing that I am horrible for not letting this go. They still don't understand it. They probably never will. But I do. I finally understand that I deserve to be treated with fundamental human dignity, and that I don't have to accept anything less simply because we share DNA. The finest retribution isn't getting even. It's becoming free, and I'm finally, completely, and delightfully free. Some may argue that I should have simply let it go, that family is family, and that I could have dealt with it quietly. To such folks I say this. When someone spits in your face and sexually assaults your spouse at your wedding, and your entire family supports and attacks you, you've already exhausted all sensible options. Sometimes quitting the game is the only way to win. I selected myself for the first time in my life, and it was the best decision I'd ever made. Update. 3 months later, several individuals have asked for an update. So here goes. Chloe fulfilled her community service, but then broke her probation by attempting to contact Marcus at his office. She was sentenced to 6 months in jail and only got out last week. The erstwhile golden kid did not seem to fare well in jail. My parents have attempted to reach out via flying monkeys multiple times, but I have made it clear to everyone that I am not interested in reconciliation. They even attempted to disrupt my cousin Leah's birthday party, where they knew I would be. I just left, and Leah kicked them out. Leah later informed me that they spent the entire time begging others to talk sense into Amelia. The most satisfying update. Chloe attempted to set up a GoFundMe for legal expenses and getting back on my feet, and it raised exactly $0. Even her enabling parents avoided public donations because they knew it would be embarrassing. Marcus and I are looking for a bigger house because we are expecting our first kid in the spring. When people ask if we're going to contact my family about the baby, I just smile and say, our child will only know family members who know how to treat others with respect. Some bridges are worth burning if they lead to toxic places. Anyway, to anyone reading this who is in a similar circumstance, you deserve better. You do not have to tolerate mistreatment simply because it comes from relatives. Choose yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your dignity. It's the best retaliation.